So we think our house is haunted, and this is all the weird stuff that's happened since bringing our newborn baby home. Just to preface, if you don't know who I am, when I moved into my house, it's over 100 years old and we're the third owners. When we introduced ourselves to our neighbours, the first thing they said to us, if you do any home renovation or if there's a new baby, the previous owners like to show up, i.e. they're ghosts. The original owners were a brother and a sister. We live in the sister's house and they knocked the house through, so it was one big house. Some weird things started happening when we did our home renovation and when I was pregnant. But the first time I've really been scared has been since I've brought my baby home. The first weird thing that happened was I brought baby downstairs to feed him and I walked by our living room, which is here. The door is shut, we have a fire, so we shut the doors. And when I walked by, it sounded like the door did this, just unlatched, and then I heard the worst mechanical whirring sound ever. I was stood where I am now, completely froze, just held my baby really tight and just shouted upstairs to my husband. I've never been so scared in my life. He ran downstairs and it was just the fish tank. The fish tank just randomly made the worst horrible sound ever when I walked by the room and the front door opened. It was weird. On the same vein of doors doing weird things, when I was booked in to give birth, I was induced. I wanted to change this sign. I just wanted to remove it because it said Caroline's bedroom in like a really weird 50s style and it was cracked. I removed it because I thought it was a bit of an omen because it wasn't Caroline's bedroom anymore, it was my son's. Since I've done that, that door is open every time I walk by it. Our hallway is pretty much the only room that needs doing at the moment, so it's very drafty, so we make sure all the doors are shut. This door just doesn't stay shut anymore. Every time I walk by in the evening, it's always like this, or it's always a bit open. I've convinced myself so many times that I've seen somebody sat there. I never have. And the teddy bears on there never stay straight. The boy teddy bears, I say the boys, the ones wearing boys' clothes, they're either always knocked over or on the bed. But the girl bunny one, it's not focusing. That always is fine. It's really weird. It does still sound like an animal is running up and down the stairs. I've kind of just got used to that sound. But some positive things is we keep on finding money. So I was going through my bookcase the other day. I opened just a random book. An envelope fell out. There was £50 in it. I obviously was going to save that and forgot about it. So that was good. Also going through our coat cupboard, various coat pockets had cash in, like a £5, £20. And behind our fireplace, we found a couple of old pound coins. So that was fun. But also my husband found this underneath the carpet. I have cleaned it up. It's just like a little stone bunny. It was really weird where it was. This carpet's 45 years old. It's disgusting. We kept on feeling a lump here. So my husband pulled it back and that's where that was. Just chilling. I don't think that's particularly old, but if anyone knows anything about that, let me know.
Happy New Year, scary story time while I play with Peachy Baby's slime. Okay, y'all, so back when I stayed in New York, okay, look, are you kidding me? I lived in a house that was haunted. This one specific night, I was on the phone with my boyfriend and we were talking. And I was in the kitchen, right? The lights were off. And I do this normally. Like, I just be in the kitchen with the lights off. But the lights were off. And next thing you know, like, as I'm talking to my boyfriend, I see this, like, black figure appear directly underneath me. Y'all, I never screamed so loud in my life. Like, wow. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. This slime is, like, extremely soft. Oh, my gosh. Okay, wait, I'm sorry. That's not the only thing that had happened to me in that house. Like, there's so many things that had happened. The second scariest thing that had happened to me was I was in the bathroom one day, and like the way the bathroom was like it was kind of a small bathroom, and the light was directly above you, okay? And the light turned off while I was in the bathroom. Not the bulb like going out. No, it flicked off, okay? And then the sink turned on. But this isn't the only haunted house that I've lived in. That one I just lived the longest in, but the very first haunted house I lived in, well, I'll say the second haunted house I lived in was my mom's house. And bro, like the doors would slam, like it was knowingly that there were two ghosts in there and one was bad and one was good. The doors would slam, the sink would turn on, like you would hear people stomping around and nobody's moving. I've told this one before, but in honor of the new year, I thought I'd tell it again. It's the one where me and my sisters were in the closet up at late at night, and we thought our dad came in the room, but like our closet door was above the floor so we could kind of see through it. When I tell you we heard the scariest noise, we heard footsteps, but we didn't see no feet. Like, I felt breath, y'all. I'm being so real. Like, I feel like that was the scariest time in my life because we didn't know what was going on and we couldn't see nothing. And we just heard a loud growl. If I could rank them, it's the one that happened at my dad's house, the one that happened in the haunted house where a lot of stuff happened, and then my mom's house. So, Happy New Year, y'all, and I love this Peachy Baby slime. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like this one's low-key my favorite one because it's like more smoother and it smells really pretty. Look at it. Oh, and there's a honeycomb. Well, no, this is not a honeycomb. I don't know what. Wait, this is a bee. I didn't even see this. Okay, wait, I'm done. Bye, guys.
Okay, for the longest time since I can remember, maybe I was 5, 6, I used to get this like ringing in my ear, right? It was like a long ass beep that lasted forever. And it would go away. And so then my mom got my ears checked and everything. I passed the hearing test and everything. And as I got older, like, it continued. And I didn't think much of it until recently. Like, I've been seeing on TikTok this Clara... Oh, I can't even remember the name. Clara something. I'll have to add it in here. But it's when you are hearing spirits or spirits are trying to communicate with you, right? Many times I'll get like this feeling, right? And it'll be like something will tell me like go do this, and then like I'll go, and then like it happens. I don't know, it's just so crazy. Like, say I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, my car's gonna get messed up. Like, I just get this feeling my car will get messed up, right? Let's hope that doesn't happen. But things like that. So a couple years ago, it's gonna be 3 years this year now, my son got terminally ill, right? And I didn't talk about this till maybe a year after because I didn't want people to think that I was crazy. And so, okay, before we found out his diagnosis, he started getting really sick. So I was taking him to the hospital and all kinds of specialists, and nobody could figure out what was going on with him. So this night, I remember just like praying so hard and like asking my ancestors for guidance, asking my guardian angel to please send me a sign. And like, I made it clear, I know you're not going to tell me what he has, but please guide me to the right people. Like, I need my son to get the help he needs, right? And so I'm laying there and I'm just like crying hysterically because to top this off, like, I was pregnant. I was due. Like, it had been a month already that we had been taking him everywhere. And I was due, like, within days of this, right? Okay, so I'm laying there and I hear in my ear, literally, I hear voices saying death. And I got so fucking scared when it happened to me because it was repeated in my ear. It was like death, death, death. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I thought I'm becoming schizophrenic now. I'm hearing shit. And I'm pregnant. How the, like, this cannot be happening to me. It's so much fucking stress. What is going on? When that stopped, when I stopped hearing that, I looked at my son and I knew if I don't get him somewhere soon, he's gonna die. And as much as I hurt and as much as I cried laying there, something made me feel at peace. Like, okay, I'm getting the sign I need. The next day, I took him to the specialist, and he's like, I'm like, what is wrong with him? He's like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out, but I don't know. He said, but go back to the hospital, ask for these tests, these scans. I'm like, dude, I already asked for them. He's like, no, go back, and if they don't do them, go to the, like, a bigger hospital we have here. Right? It's like a 40-minute drive. So that happened, right? And so I take him to the hospital, ask for the scans, and they misdiagnosed him with some other stuff. So he was sent to a bigger hospital, like emergency, right? And so there he was diagnosed with this disease. And the doctor's like, if you would have waited days, we wouldn't have been able to help him. And so he had like the most intense treatment. I had to see the worst things of my life. I had to live that with them. But I mean, he beat it and he's here with us now. And it took me forever to talk about it, like a year, honestly, after that, to my family, because I didn't want them to think I was crazy. Like, especially like I'm about to have a baby. I was so scared of like what people are gonna like think, like, oh, this girl's fucking hearing things, hearing voices. But as I'm looking at these videos on TikTok, I'm like, dude, this has happened to me forever. Like, now I'm thinking I have this. Like, I have this oh my gosh, I cannot think of the name. Clairaudience. I think that's what it is. And it's like you're able to hear, you know, higher power and stuff. But I just wanted to share that with you guys because I find it so interesting that as I'm like saying all these stories and stuff, and like, I know people put all these comments like, you need to see Jesus, and I do, like, I talk to Jesus and stuff, like, you need to get your house cleansed. I've had my house cleansed before. It's just like, I know sometimes it's me that like attracts these things or spirits or whatever. And now, like, as I dig more into it, I'm like, maybe spirits are just trying to communicate with me. Thank you so much for 10,000 followers. I love going on here and sharing my spooky stories and reading your guys' comments. And I truly, truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys.
Currently in Savannah, Georgia, there's a very interesting and gifted man named Howard who is Native American, and everyone on the south side of Savannah knows who this man is. He is tall, he's tan, he has long dark hair, he's often seen wearing tribal clothing, and you can often find him on street corners of busy intersections, standing on mounds of oysters, yelling things, and back in the day, he often frequented the bar. Someone named Sarah from Savannah sent me some lore about Howard because she says what's more interesting than just this description of him is the stories that surround him. And everyone in the area has heard stories like this, has a story like this. Nobody really knows how he has the gifts that he has. His father managed a bar that Howard frequented in the 80s and 90s, and her father always described Howard as stronger than an ox and very spiritually connected to the earth. He also described Howard as being able to read people better than anyone he's ever met. But one story that he often told about Howard was one day he was at the bar. He and two coworkers were trying to move a massive ice well, and it was three grown men trying to push this thing, and they were only able to move it maybe an inch or two. And in walks Howard, and he sees what they're doing, and he says, "Let me do it." And with a push of one finger is able to move the ice well into the area that he needs to go. His cousin also has a story about Howard. In 2010, he was fighting an insane custody battle with his child's mother, who had taken their child across state lines, and Sarah's cousin was trying very hard to get the child back. But after a particularly bad meeting with his lawyer, in which there was more red tape about getting his child home, he goes to the bar where Sarah's dad works to have a beer and take the edge off. In walks Howard, who sits a few seats down from her cousin. And her cousin knew of Howard because he had worked at the bar about 15 years prior, but hadn't seen him in just as long. And so Howard sits down, nods at him, and her cousin doesn't say anything about what he's going through or why he's there. And Howard just looks at him and says, "Don't worry, your son will be home soon." This obviously caught Sarah's cousin completely off guard because he was like, how would he know what I am going through right now? But he figures that word must have gotten around town and gotten back to Howard somehow. And so he doesn't think much of it. He's just like, that's just Howard being Howard. But the next day he gets a call from his child's mother, and she tells him that she's flying home the very next day and his son will be home soon. Sarah's favorite and strangest story about Howard takes place one night when all of the regulars who frequent the bar are in. They're all drinking together. Howard's there. It's pretty late. They're all drinking, having a good time. And all of a sudden Howard pipes up and he says, "I have to go. The babies need me." And he pays his tab and he walks out of the bar. And everybody around him is like, who are the babies? Like, what is he talking about? You know, it's just Howard being Howard. But three of the guys are so curious. They're like, we're going to go follow him and see what he's up to. Howard stumbles out of the bar, goes to the parking lot, gets in his car, and starts driving. The three guys hop in another car and are following him from a distance. And Howard's driving and driving on these long, dark roads, and he gets about 45 minutes away from the bar, and all the guys in the other car are like, where is he going? As I said, it's very late at night. There's not many other cars around, but finally on this long stretch of dark road where they hadn't seen another car in like 10 or 20 minutes, they see some headlights in the distance. And as they see the headlights come into view, Howard stops his car in the middle of the road and gets out. Walks to the middle of the two-lane road and starts waving his hands wildly, and all the guys in the car behind him are like, he is going to get hit, we have to do something. But luckily the truck that's approaching, which is a semi, sees him and comes to a screeching halt. And as it does, a family of about 30 deer come behind Howard and start crossing the road. Three guys all recounted the same story, that had the truck not stopped in time, it would have barreled into the herd of deer and injured most of them, and possibly the driver of the truck as well. Once the deer had crossed the road, Howard waves the semi-truck driver on. He sees the car of the guys behind him. He waves, he smiles, he gets back in his car and heads back to the bar. Three men all agreed that they would have never believed that this had happened had they not seen it with their own eyes, and they tell this story apparently all the time. Howard had apparently said crazy stuff like that all the time and left the bar, but nobody had ever followed him until this night. Sarah said there are many more Howard stories out there. These are just a few, the tip of the iceberg, but she's curious if anyone else from the area has Howard stories or knows of him. He's Eddie's in his 70s now, and she hasn't seen him in quite some time, but she's sure that wherever he is, he's where he's supposed to be.
User submitted story in our Scare Share series comes to us from Honduras and someone who we're just going to call A. A starts out the story by telling us that she was born in a small village in Honduras. She said that there are a lot of these villages and they are very rural, and some of them do not even have electricity. A is born in this village and she lives there with her mom and her dad. Now, in this village, there is this woman who A just called Carla, and Carla kind of had a thing for A's dad. So she ends up going after him, and then eventually A's dad does have an affair on A's mom with said Carla. At the point that all of this is happening, A is coming up on her preteen years, and Carla has a daughter that is A's age. Unfortunately, Carla's daughter, because of the whole situation, and everyone knows what is going on and knows that Carla wants A's dad, and A's dad has had this affair with her, Carla's daughter starts to bully A, and it gets to the point where it becomes really bad. So A's mom decides that she is going to send her to the city to live with her aunt, get her away from Carla and Carla's daughter, and hopefully all of these things will stop affecting her. Eventually, she will also move, but she does have things that she needs to get in order before she can go, so she's going to send A on ahead. A moves to the city, she moves in with her aunt, everything is perfectly fine. There are no issues, she's enjoying the city. 2 years later, her mom follows. A's mom ends up getting her own place, and she then moves out of her aunt's house into her mom's home. She says this is when the activity starts. The first night that they are staying in A's mom's house, she is in bed with her. She's like, I haven't seen my mom. Like, I want to sleep with her. So she does end up sleeping in her room. And she says that she does remember being kind of scared. Like, she doesn't know why, it was just something, the vibes. And she says she feels something pat her on her head while she's laying in bed. She looks over at her mom. Her mom is facing the other direction. She knows that it is not her mom touching her. She says that she is terrified, but just pretends like she is sleeping until it stops. Doesn't wake her mom up, doesn't say anything. There were some other strange occurrences that did happen in the house, but nothing too big until A's cousin, who we're just going to call T, moves in with A and her mom. He is a little bit older than A. He's living in the house with them, and then he kind of confides in A that he is kind of having like some weird experiences in the house. She said, for example, his laptop would be closed and off, but would randomly start to play music. When he was there by himself, he would hear people talking, slamming doors, running around the house, and he was alone. A ends up sharing this with her mom, who also has had experiences in the home, and says that she will hear doors slamming, she will hear people running around, she will hear voices when she's at home by herself. She told her, one time I was standing here and I was washing dishes, looking out the window, and there was this very heavy lock on the gate. And she said that the lock started to move like something was trying to get out of the gate. They all get together. They're talking about their strange experiences that they're having in the house when they're by themselves. A shares like she's had doors where she's going to like go to walk through them and they just swing open in front of her. She has heard people talking. She has heard people running around the house, doors opening and closing. She said one time she was sitting on the couch. She was looking at her phone. Something funny popped up on the screen and she laughed. And she said, it was loud. And she heard someone right next to her, like very loudly say, shh. In her email, A wrote that when it comes to these types of things within her culture, you do not let your fear of these entities or these things control you. You rebuke it in the name of Jesus, you tell it to get out, or you just are like, I'm going to respect you and you respect me. Now, the incidents that they were having inside the home were pretty minute, so they ended up just learning how to live with it. At this point, it is still her mom, and her cousin living in this house, and her cousin get together, and just to personify this thing and what they're feeling, they end up giving it a name, Roberto. A says that they live with Roberto for years. They just deal with these things, and it is what it is. You just don't let the fear control you. If it's bothering you, you rebuke it in the name of Jesus, and you move on. The thing is that Roberto never left. Now, A says that she has a big family, so follow the story, but another cousin of hers, who is a female, we're just going to call them E, starts dating this guy. E is coming over to her mom's house a lot. They are hanging out. At this point, A is like 17 years old. E brings her boyfriend one day, and he said he's going to come in and he's going to cook them lunch. From what A knows about this guy that her cousin E is dating, she has found out that he is a brujo, a spiritual healer within their culture. They haven't said anything to him about what's going on inside the house or Roberto, but he walks in to cook them lunch, and immediately he's just like, this place isn't right. Something is here. A ends up telling her cousin's boyfriend, like, yeah, we've, had like some experiences. And he's like, no, this thing isn't good. Like, I can take care of this though. So he ends up going out to his car, grabs some incense and some other items, and comes back inside. He's walking around the house. He's kind of chanting. He's burning this incense, and he gets to the door to her cousin's room. And he looks at A and he tells her, oh, this is where it's most comfortable. I'm going in here. He goes in there and he shuts the door. A says he's in there for like 15 minutes. He comes out and he's got this look on his face like he's troubled. He's like, what is going on here? So he goes up to A and he asks her, did you name this thing? And A ends up telling him, like, yeah, we named it Roberto, but it was like kind of like a joke because it was never leaving, like it was always here. So he ends up telling A, like, well, yeah, now he thinks that, like, you want him here. You've given him a name, you've given him a space. Like, he likes it here and he doesn't want to leave. He goes on to tell A, you're actually very lucky that he does like you. He does like the space that you have created for him because he has not always been here. He wasn't here when you moved in. He came with your mom. He was sent by someone to wreak havoc upon your family, to cause your mom to go insane, to cause your mom to hurt you. But when he saw your family, he decided that he liked you. He didn't want to do those things anymore. You made space for him, you gave him a name, and now he likes it here. He ends up telling A, look, I'm going to make a deal with this Roberto, who you have named. I am going to tell him that he can stay, but he cannot stay inside the home. He is welcome to stay outside on the property, but if he is going to stay, we're flipping the script on why he was sent here, and he's going to now be protection for you and your family, as opposed to being sent here to destroy your family. A's like, okay. He goes back into her cousin's room, shuts the door. He comes out of the room a few minutes later and he tells her, okay, like, I have given him the stipulations. I've let him know, like, under what circumstances he can stay. He has agreed to those. I found this machete in your cousin's room. I'm leaning it right here against the wall, a way that it's not going to fall on its own. When the machete falls, he's accepted the deal and he's going to go outside. They said that they all sit in the living room for a few minutes and just wait. And eventually, after about like 10 minutes, the machete falls down. She feels this wind run past her in the living room, and even like this swinging door to go to outside, like it starts swinging on its own. She says that her cousin's boyfriend, the Brujo, stands up and he was like, okay, the deal is struck. We're done. After this, A's cousin and A's mom experienced nothing inside the home. She says that anyone who comes onto their property with any ounce of ill intent feels oppressed, feels threatened, feels like they don't want to be there, just is given an icky feeling where they just cannot stay. A ends up telling her mom everything that her cousin's boyfriend did within the house, everything that he told her. A's mom ends up telling her, okay, well, that makes sense because, you know, when I left the village that we were living in, Carla did practice witchcraft, so I know who sent this thing to try to destroy our family. When it comes to Carla and A's dad, it doesn't sound like anything really came from that. It kind of sounds like A's dad was like a little bit of a dog when it came to women. And A says, yeah, she does agree. Like, it was really crappy what he did. But she did want to note in this story that, like, even though he wasn't the best husband, he was a really wonderful dad, has always been present for her, has always told her how much he loves her. So even though, you know, that aspect of relationships, he's not great, as a dad, he's wonderful. Now, Carla does try to reconcile with A's mom. Like I said, this was a small village. Like, they obviously, like, knew each other. They were friends, whatever. So she ends up showing up at the house one day, and she tries to come onto the property, and she is so, like, feels so oppressed and just, like, she can't be there that she actually can't even stay. But then after all of this happens, when it comes to Carla, she just kind of had a string of bad luck. Carla's mom ends up getting really sick. She needs to have surgery. She has cancer. The doctors go in, and while they're doing surgery, inside of Carla's mom, A says that they find leaves, dirt, string, just weird stuff that should not be inside of a human body. They don't know what to make of it, but they do the surgery and they tell her, you're cancer free. Not long after that, the cancer comes back aggressively and her mom ends up passing away. She says she doesn't know if it's like karma, coincidence, Roberto, you know, what she did turning around on her. She said, I don't know. But she says that Roberto is still there at their house, and anybody who comes onto their property with ill intent has to deal with Roberto because he's not leaving. So let me know what you guys think about that. I think there is this thing with, like, when you like send bad stuff to people, isn't it like it returns to you times 3 or something? I don't know. That's not my thing, so I could be very well wrong. But let me know your thoughts on that. Roberto is the MVP because he made up his own mind. He wasn't hurting their family. That everyone has a really wonderful day. If you have a story that you would like to submit for Share a Scare, there's an email in my bio, so please send that over. Love reading them. I'll see you soon. Okay, bye.
Ooh, this one gives me chills in a good way. One of my followers recently sent this in and I absolutely love it. I'm not sure if she wants to remain anonymous or not, so I'm going to keep her name out of it. This story takes place from when she was a child. They were at Tim Hortons, which was a rare treat for the family. She said that her mother, who has epilepsy, was mostly doing well since she had her baby, but every now and then some mini seizures would come about. She said on this day, while they were all sitting around the table, she experienced one of those mini jumps. Her Her arms and legs kind of twitch uncontrollably. So in the midst of this, she accidentally tips over her very hot drink across the table. She said that the scalding, rich, sugary drink had spilled all over the baby Michael. Instantly, panic filled the air. Everybody's jumping up and calling for help. The staff rushed over to them and somebody called the ambulance. And then she said, something remarkable happened. A woman wearing a Tim Hortons uniform seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. She came over, scooped up the baby Michael, and rushed him into the bathroom. With calm efficiency, she helped remove the soaked clothing from the baby and then brought him back. Now, his skin was only slightly red. There was no burning or damage, just a little bit red. The woman handed him back to the mother, and the ambulance did arrive soon after. Once they got to the hospital, the doctors were all astonished as they examined Michael. They were discussing that the spilled drink was very hot and full of fat and sugar. They said normally that this would literally peel the skin, and yet this baby had no injuries at all, not one burn or scrape or anything, and the doctors and nurses were all amazed. So after the whole ordeal, the mother goes back to the Tim Hortons to thank the worker there who helped them. But the staff were all very confused. They said that no woman like who they described had ever worked there. She hadn't been a new employee there, and there was nobody like that was a part of the team at all. And no manager, except for the one that was on regular duty that day, had been there at all that day. She said her mother confirmed with them personally that there was no record of anybody like that ever working there. Just no explanation. She says they've all wondered ever since then, was this some kind of a guardian angel sent there to protect Michael in a moment of danger? Who or whatever she was, they are immensely grateful for everything that she did that day amongst the chaos. She ended it saying something magical happened and Michael walked away completely unharmed. I just love a good creepy story time that actually ends up being pretty heartwarming. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you have a creepy story of your own, I would love to hear it. And if you're new here, follow for more creepy story time.
To all of my folks in and around the Houston area, specifically in and around Spring, Texas. Let's talk about Old Town Spring. Now, I just recently read in an older blog that place is considered to be the ghost capital of Texas. Look, it's not my words, it's theirs. Look, ghost capital of Texas by night. But let's talk about a couple of the haunted places around there. First off, there's this little gazebo in the middle of this town, right? According to some people, they have seen what appears to be children playing around this gazebo. The weirdest part is they are playing around this gazebo, like running and laughing, way past the closing hours of these shops. And the weirder thing is that people who have seen them said that they look like they're dressed of a different time period. Then you go past the gazebo and you hit Winchie Brothers. This place has a lot of ghost stories. Even when I went to high school in Houston, like this was the thing, like let's go have a burger and see if we could see a ghost at Winchie Brothers. If you go in here and talk to any of the servers, they're gonna tell you a ghost story because that's the initiation process from what one of them told me. Once you hit like, I think it's the 1 or the 3 month mark, that's when the ghosts here, they kind of fuck around with you. Second floor appears where shit gets really real. People have seen an apparition of an older man and a woman. You see, back in the day, it used to be a brothel. You might have some ghosts that are in the afterlife going bow chicka bow on, baby. Hey, big spender. Drinks are fucking bomb though. And then you got Spirit Quest. I love this place. Great crystal collection, jewelry. This place used to be a funeral parlor, so that tells you mother flippin' haunted. When I came here, there was a worker here that just started, right? I asked them, hey, is this place haunted? And if so, like, what have been your experiences? And they said, oddly enough, like a couple days ago, they saw the former owner walking back and forth. I said, oh, former owner, do they come and visit? She's like, no, that former owner passed away years ago. And a lot of people don't want to be here past closing because that's when it gets weirder. If you want to really dive into the ghost stories and do a paranormal investigation here, my friends over at Dark Side of Spring are hosting a really amazing event called Dinner with the Dead. It's a 2-day event that actually we decided to do 2 price points on. So it goes from March the 6th through the 7th. Our special guest is the Adam Berry from Kindred Spirits, and a few of us that are joining him. That's myself, Tanya and Lewis, another investigator and medium, the duo of Parapeculiar along with their haunted museum, and the guy that keeps Houston Very Strange, Adam of Houston Strange podcast. Friday is just covering just the tour and the investigation of the entire town. Saturday event, that's March the 7th. That's going to be a little more because it includes dinner along with some beverages. That's going to be held in the second floor of Wenchie Brothers. So we get to investigate the second floor, and then we get to investigate the town. If you're interested in this event, you could find the link in my bio. Just click on it and it will take you to where you can find tickets and more information. To see you guys there, and I look forward to investigating Old Town Spring with you. Stay haunted, stay weird, stay classy, Spring, Texas. Hello and welcome back to a series of anonymous petty events, the Toxic Tea Party. This series is brought to you by toxicity and ungodly amounts of petty. Not another one. You already know the drill. This is the necklace. It comes with a matching bracelet. I do not have it on right. I wear this religiously. I really do like. Now onto the story. I, 21 female, am currently pregnant and in a long-term relationship with my boyfriend, 23 male. I'm seeking advice on how to handle ongoing issues with his maternal grandmother, especially with a baby on the way. Is this a monster-in-law situation? For background, my boyfriend's mother had him very young, 17. She had struggled with addiction for many years, largely stemming from severe emotional and mental abuse by her mother. Because of this, my boyfriend's father was granted full custody when my boyfriend was a child. His maternal grandparents attempted to gain custody, but were unsuccessful as his father was stable and capable. When my boyfriend was young, his maternal grandparents were intermittently involved, but contact eventually stopped due to unsafe behavior. They smoked excessively around him, including in closed spaces, despite him being a child. This resulted in him developing asthma and at one point requiring a breathing machine. After several incidents, his father cut off contact. The relationship resumed only after my boyfriend turned 18. His maternal grandmother has a long-standing and widely acknowledged pattern of fabricating stories, manipulating family members against one another, and rewriting history in real time. What a fucking peach. She sounds great. She frequently presents herself as having been extremely wealthy in the past, despite having spent large amounts of family money at casinos. At times, my boyfriend had been pressured into paying their bills, something I eventually had to put a stop to. She also shows an intense and uncomfortable fixation on my boyfriend. Oh, we're one of those too. How fun. She openly refers to him as hers, frequently says he is her favorite, and gives him special treatment that even he finds inappropriate and unfair to other family members. This claiming behavior makes him uncomfortable but is ignored by others to avoid conflict. Why are we still going around her if we are uncomfortable? He seems a little bit aware of the situation, and he is uncomfortable, and he knows that her behavior is inappropriate. She has 4 daughters and no sons. Notably, she never mentioned any miscarriage until after her grandsons were born. After each grandson was born, she claimed that he was the reincarnation of a different miscarriage, changing the story each time. How fucking weird. Does she have a therapist? Has she ever been to a facility? Have we considered that? Since I became pregnant, her behavior has escalated significantly. She refuses to acknowledge me as the mother and only congratulated my boyfriend upon learning of the pregnancy. I really don't fucking like this lady. I'm also not liking where this is going with boyfriend and not putting his foot down. She behaves as though the baby belongs to her. She claims she is experiencing my pregnancy symptoms and frequently walks around with her pants unbuttoned, rubbing her stomach, stating that the baby is in her stomach. No, okay, she sounds like a psychopath and she actually really does need to go to a facility. This is concerning. This is very concerning behavior. It's one thing for her to have made comments about previous miscarriages and making up these stories about how these other babies and sons are the reincarnations of those, but her obsession with your boyfriend and how she feels about him and the way that she's acting around you and then saying that, I would be terrified. She fabricates stories in real time. In one instance, we were having a calm conversation about my boyfriend and my relationship. She told me I needed to do whatever he says because he is my provider. I responded lightly and jokingly that it's not the 1990s anymore or the 1950s and 40s.
all those, you know, especially since I'm in college and working while pregnant. She told me that I was lucky he's not abusive. Why? Because it runs in his bloodline? Why the fuck would you say that? Immediately afterwards, she went into another room, cried, and told my boyfriend's grandfather that I had screamed at her. No one corrected her because they didn't want her to blow up. If she has one bad day, she intentionally makes it a bad week for everyone. When I express discomfort or concern, my boyfriend becomes upset and says that because she has a mental disorder, I should ignore it. Wrong. That's not correct. While I understand that she may be mentally ill and untreated, her behavior is emotionally distressing, especially during pregnancy, and I'm concerned about future boundaries once the baby is born. We could even push it further and say that you could be concerned for your health by the way that she's talking, especially if she's untreated. And why is nobody pushing, especially her husband, pushing the issue for her to seek fucking treatment? Because this is weird ass behavior. Weird as fuck, boy. I'm looking for guidance on how to set and enforce boundaries, protect my mental health, and navigate the situation as a couple, especially when my partner has been conditioned to tolerate this behavior to keep the peace. Any insight or advice would be appreciated. Start therapy, and I'm not being funny. I'm being so serious. Go to a therapist now, because he is going to have to learn how to set those boundaries. That is his grandmother. And whether or not you two work it out as a couple, you still have to put up with them, because that baby is going to be with them. Well, maybe not with them, but like with his side of the family. And if he's unable to set those boundaries, whether y'all are together or not saying that you're going to break up, not saying that you suggested that you were going to break up, but I'm saying if it comes to a point where you had to say, you're not setting boundaries, I'm setting boundaries, we're done, yada, yada, yada. If he is not able to set those boundaries now or learn how to set those boundaries for the sake of the safety of the child and you, he won't be able to do that on his own. And he needs to really understand that he has been conditioned to like protect the peace or whatever, or make sure that she doesn't fucking blow up because she's a crazy person. Also, we can't dismiss these behaviors just because she's mentally ill. You are still a grown adult, and it is still your responsibility to go get treatment and go get help to where you don't have these behaviors, or you know how to control yourself. You know what I mean? I feel like that came off a little bit crass. That's not, you know what I mean? Like, I have really bad anxiety, and if I start treating people like shit because I'm anxious, that's on me, because it's my responsibility to get that under control. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, my advice is to go to a fucking therapist, because she can be dangerous, and that needs some professional help. And I'm not being funny, because I mean, we could also say, cuss her out. That would be relieving and probably what she needs also. But I feel as though that would be counterproductive in the same sense. So if anybody else has any advice in the comments, feel free to drop it. I hope, for the sake of your sanity and your safety as well, that your boyfriend can recognize that he has just allowed this to go on and needs to learn how to set boundaries for the sake of you and the baby. Okay, if you guys have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I will see y'all at the next episode. Stay petty, friends.
There's a man who lives in my closet.
Oh dear.
I had the misfortune of running into him late one night. I recently moved to Maine after a difficult divorce that left me with a fair amount of money. We had no children, so I decided it would be best to pack up and move on, start afresh somewhere, you know. I've settled on Maine as I'm a huge lover of Stephen King novels. Many of his stories are placed there, and I found myself captivated with a small town called Boothby Harbor. Little did I realise I would soon be starring in my very own horror novel.
Right.
I packed my car, leaving many of my old belongings behind, and off I went. The drive was a little over 7 hours. Not horrible, but just enough to make my neck start aching. I pulled up to a quaint hotel and settled in for the evening. I spent the next few days touring the town, acquainting myself with local shops and tourist sites. It was everything I'd hoped for and more. I quickly got to work on my lodging arrangements. I couldn't stay in a hotel forever, and most of my stuff was still nestled tightly in my car. I browsed real estate websites and booked a few tours, but nothing was catching my interest. That was until I found 127 Cottage Drive.
Oh, I can already see the movie of it.
It was beautiful, breathtaking. A mid-sized Victorian-style home with lots of character. It was nearly 100 years old and selling at a reasonable price. There would definitely be some elbow grease involved to get the place back in shape, but I needed a project right now. Anything to keep my mind off recent events. I made an offer that same day, and after a final walkthrough and loads of paperwork, the house was mine. Everything was smooth sailing at first. I promptly moved all my things inside and began to tuck them away. After several days of manic cleaning, I did some shopping and bought a few pieces of furniture. I was left with one more box to unpack. A box of old photos that I hadn't had the heart to go through yet. Photos of me, my husband, some of his family. My heart ached a little. I didn't have any motivation left, so I tucked it away in my bedroom closet. It was a large closet, much bigger than what I would need. It didn't appear to be original to the house. Likely upgraded since older homes had much less storage. I shoved the box deep into the back until it was barely visible behind my few rows of clothing. After a few hours, I felt my eyes growing heavy and decided to go to bed. I slept well for at least a few hours, but woke with a feeling of unease. I could have sworn I'd heard a noise. "Hello?" I called out. No response. Not sure what I was expecting. I tried to shrug it off, but I had a really hard time falling back to sleep. Something felt off. That's when I noticed it. My closet door was open. I definitely shut it before going to sleep. I quietly got out of bed, crept over, hastily pulling the curtain rod in case I needed a weapon, peered into the closet, the flashlight from my phone illuminating the clothing with a glow. I didn't notice anything particularly out of place except for the box that I'd tucked back earlier. It wasn't where I'd left it. Now it was in front of my clothing. If I tried to shut the closet door, it would have gotten stuck because someone or something had pushed the box upwards several inches. I felt a chill down my spine. Footsteps. My head shot towards the bedroom door. I swear I just heard footsteps. My heart was racing. I'd always considered myself to be a brave person, but this had me nearly in tears from panic. It was a new home, somewhere I was really unfamiliar with, and someone else had gotten inside. I clutched the metal of the curtain rod firmly in my hands as I inched towards the bedroom door. I slowly pushed the door open and peered into the hallway. A light was on in the kitchen. Not the overhead lighting, but a dim, soft glow. This asshole was digging through my fridge while I was sleeping.
What?
I slammed the bedroom door, closed and locked it behind me to promptly dial 911. The police showed up in a matter of minutes. It was the longest few minutes of my life. They found a middle-aged man still digging through my kitchen.
Oh my God.
I poked my head out the door just long enough to catch a glimpse of them escorting him to the police cruiser in handcuffs. He had long dark brown hair and he looked unkempt with a frizzy beard nearly touching his collarbone. His clothes were tattered and I could almost smell him from the front door. After the arrest, the cops did a thorough search of my home. I led them to the closet where I noticed the box had been moved. After some investigating, they found a small panel loose on the back of the closet wall and an old door that had been sealed.
Oh my God. Frogging.
Likely from the renovation. It appeared the previous homeowners had built over the original closet and attempted to seal it. Only after the house was left uninhabited for several years, someone discovered the space and had made it their own personal home. They showed me the space the man had been inhabiting for God knows how long. It smelled like decay and indescribable body odour. There were jars of urine in several buckets with bowel releases.
Oh my God. Man,
Foul.
awful.
There were a few apple cores, chip bags, beer bottles, various other liquor bottles, needles. The most disturbing item was an old photograph of me tacked onto the wall.
What?
I'd only lived in the house for a few days. This man was digging through my belongings while I slept.
Oh my God.
Perusing around my new home, and I don't even want to imagine what else. I packed what little I had and left Maine altogether. Third time's a charm, I guess.
Oh my God.
Isn't that foul?
Let's read a true and scary story from Reddit. Something was standing in the middle of the highway at 2 a.m. This happened about 8 months ago, and I still think about it every time I drive late at night. I was coming back from a friend's place in another city, and it was already past 2 a.m., so the highway was basically empty except for the occasional truck. I actually like driving at that hour because it's quiet and there's no traffic stress. So I had music playing low and was just cruising along, not really thinking about anything. I remember I was on a long straight stretch of road with no streetlights, just my headlights and darkness on both sides, when I noticed something far ahead in my lane. At first, I thought it was a road sign or maybe a cardboard box that fell off of a truck, because it wasn't moving at all. But as I got closer, my headlights started to light it up more clearly, and I realized it wasn't an object. It was shaped like a person standing right in the middle of the highway. I immediately slowed down because obviously that didn't make sense. There were no nearby cars, no broken down vehicles, nothing that would explain why someone would just be standing there at that time of night. The closer I got, the more uneasy I felt, like my brain was trying to warn me before I fully understood what I was seeing. The figure looked tall and thin, and it wasn't trying to wave me down or move out of the way. It was just standing there, facing my direction, completely still. I remember thinking maybe it was someone drunk or injured, so I slowed almost to a stop about 20 or 30 feet away. My headlights were fully on it now, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. It wasn't reacting to the light at all. Most people would shield their eyes or step aside, but it didn't move even slightly. It just stood there. I leaned forward a little over my steering wheel, trying to see its face, and I swear I couldn't make out any features. Not like it was dark, I mean, it literally looked blank, like the light wasn't reflecting off of a face at all. Right when I was trying to figure out what I was looking at, it suddenly took one slow step toward my car. Not a stumble, not a normal walk, just one deliberate step. That was enough for me. I didn't wait to see anything else. I hit the gas and swerved around it, and as I passed, I glanced to the side for half a second. There was nothing there. No person beside my window, no shadow behind me, nothing in the mirror when I checked. It was just an empty road again, like it had never been there. I actually pulled over about a minute later because my hands were shaking so bad I couldn't hold the steering wheel steady. I kept replaying it in my head, trying to come up with a logical explanation, but nothing made sense. If it was a person, where did they go in those 2 seconds? There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, just flat roadside and open ground. I eventually convinced myself I was tired and imagined it, but the thing is, I wasn't sleepy at all before that moment. And what still bothers me the most isn't that something was standing there, it's that whatever it was waited until I got close to move. And then this story was posted on r/True Scary Stories by user Real Horror Hub. And I would probably say this is like a rake or some sort of humanoid cryptid, but it kind of sounds like Slender Man. I don't know if there's a cryptid that's similar to Slender Man, but tall, thin, no face, and just disappearing out of nowhere. What? That sounds familiar to me. So definitely interesting and very, very, very scary. But kudos to this person for driving off really quick, because who knows what would have happened had they stayed there staring at this creature. If you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can, and I will see you in the next one.
We listen, we don't get scared, and we don't judge. Let me tell you guys a story time of when my friend partied with ghosts, where she went to somebody's house, got there, partied, left, came back the next day with somebody because she had left something over there, and found out that number one, that house was nowhere to be found. Number two, she was partying with ghosts. You remember the story that I told you guys where I said I went to this guy's house and, he wanted me to sleep with a snake until I screamed. And then I left that house and ran upwards and went to the police officers to tell them that, hey, this person is trying to do XYZ. Took them back to that house and there was nothing but a lake there. I told my friends that story time, especially this friend. I told her the story and guys, she never believed me. She was like, I'm lying, I'm just making up a story, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I bet no problem. Oh, this one time she comes to my house. She wants to invite me to this party that these guys are throwing, right? She tells me that, hey, this person is throwing a party, don't you want to come? Don't you want to pull through and all of that? She's like, this person texted me on Instagram. And I was like, okay, let me see the person. So we go on this guy's Instagram and I see that he is friends with people from that particular country. And I was like, no, thank you. Anything involving those people, I do not want, because I've had an experience with them and I do not want to experience them again. I'm sorry. It's like, oh, you're just being a party pooper, you should come through, you're not gonna get bored. I'm just like, nah. Saturday comes along, they go to the party, I'm at home, right? Chilled. So this girl comes to my house on Sunday and she looks like she had been fighting, right? I'm asking her, what happened at a party? Did you guys enjoy and all of that? She's like, yo, bruh, what I'm about to tell you is scary. But you're the only person that I feel understands this kind of things. I'm like, okay, what happened? She's like, okay, fine. Saturday, I think at 7 p.m., this guy came to pick them up with her friends, right? This guy came to pick up my friend with her other friends that she had brought to this entire thing. She's like, everything is normal. They're inside this nice car. It's 3 of them in the back seat and then she's in the front seat with this one guy, right? They drive to the party. They get there and it's so beautiful, guys. It was a gated estate. You know, it was a gated estate. It was nice. You know, there were so many cars over there. So, okay, they get out of the car. My friend and her other friends, right? Her other 3 friends and the guy. They get out of the car. They go inside the place. They go inside the house, right? And they greet everybody. It's nice. Everybody's kiki. You know, they greet everybody. And she's like, you know, there's a bunch of people from that particular country. And, you know, it's nice. You know, some people are doing substances there, you know, snow, and all of that good stuff. And there are other girls there. They're partying. They're having fun. All of a sudden, she's like, somebody switches off the lights, right? And now, she's like, somebody switched off the lights. And so as mid dancing and all of that, she's like, when this person switched off the lights, she realized that, no man, where's everybody? Do you understand? Like, when the light is off, like, your eyes can still see, but they can't necessarily see. If you get what I mean, like, you can still see in the darkness, but you don't necessarily see the person, but you can see a figure that, okay, this person isn't, like, you guys get me? I hope you get me. So, okay, she's like, they turned the light on again, and she sees that, no, man, like, these people are back again. It's like, hey, nah, like, no, man, something is off here. And the guy that she was with, I feel like he realized that she kind of can see what's going on. So he holds her, he's like, are you okay? She's like, yeah, like, I'm okay, you know? She's like, she quickly clocked it, like, to not tell this guy what she just saw or what she just experienced, right? Chilled. She's like, the party goes on, but she's kind of uncomfortable because, no, man, you know, once you start to notice one thing, a lot of things, you start noticing a lot of things in patterns, you know? She's like, for one, there was this person that was sitting on the couch, and that person did not have legs. And she's just looking at that person like, okay, but where are your legs? And she's like, this person, she remembers that this person stood up to go, like, get a drink. And she's like, wait, but, like, something is going on here. Okay, fine. She's like, okay, she continues, and then she starts walking to the bathroom. As she's walking to the bathroom to, like, wash her face because she thinks she's hallucinating and maybe they might have dragged her drink or something, she stumbles across this passage. She walks into this passage, opens one of the doors, and it's pictures on pictures of girls. Like, girls that are missing. Like, it's pictures of girls that are missing, and it's just a lot. They're plugged on the wall, and she's like, damn, like, what is going on in this house? And then she's like, she walks to this other door, and then she opens the door, and she finds chains on chains on chains, like so many chains inside that room. And it's kind of like confusing, like, what's going on here? She closes the door and she goes to the bathroom, washes her face, and she still sees the same thing. She realizes that some of these people are holding drinks, but they don't have hands. Some of these people are standing, but they don't have legs. Like, something is off here, and she starts to get scared. She now goes to look for her friends. So she starts to go look for her friends and tell them, like, hey, I am about to bolt. We are leaving this party. So she goes to her friends. She looks for her friends, y'all. And she tells her friends, like, guys, like, we need to go. And one of the friends is vomiting outside. And the 2 are, like, you know, holding her, whatever. Because my friend thinks that this one friend is drunk. And they know she was not drunk, guys. She saw something that she was not supposed to see. So baby girl gets outside and is like, hey guys, we need to leave. And they're all like, yeah, no, like, something is really going on. So as they're planning to leave, the guy that brought them there, the guy who was with my friend, comes to her and is like, hey, what's going on? Like, are you guys okay? And she's like, yeah, we're fine. She's just vomiting. And guy comes with water and is like, here's some water, drink. And my friend hits the glass by mistake because she's like, no, man, like, no, here's something bigger than us. It's happening. She hits the glass like, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, can you please go get us water? As the guy is walking to get water, she quickly Ubers, right? Ubers. And now the crazy part is every single time, also she requested, and this Uber is just going around in circles, and she's texting this guy like, what's going on? Can't you find the location? Guy is like, yeah, no, can you guys please stand somewhere where it's not like an open field because I'm scared. The girls are like, what open field are you talking about? Right? And he's like, please go stand like at a garage or something. Okay, cool. So they realize that the gate is closed. They have to ask somebody to open for them, and these people are not going to open for them, or they're going to open for them and accompany them to wherever they want to go, right? So they jump the fence, this high wall. They get on top of something, I don't know what they got on top of, and they all jumped. They start running, right? So they run, they get to this gas station, and they stop right there and they request, and the Uber finally comes, and he's like, why were you guys standing in a bush? Like, did guys leave you there? Are you guys okay? They're like, what? They still are like puzzled, like, what bush are you talking about? My friend is like, that same morning they get home, they sleep. Baby girl that was vomiting tells them like, yo, like, I went into the car with this one guy, And this guy like suddenly changed. Like we started kissing, we started turning each other on, and he started changing and he started growling, and he was just doing this weird thing, and I was like, well, what's going on? And he started like trying to tear my pants off her, just like an animal, and she jumped out and she left. And because she was so scared, she started vomiting. So my friend realizes that she left her shoes. I don't know how she left her shoes at that place when she was jumping the fence. So she's like, no, I need to go back and get my shoes. Goes into the car with one of her guy friends. When they get there, they get to nothing but an open field. No house, no gated estate, nothing. And before you get to that field, guys, you leave the houses here and you start driving a really long way and you get to the field. My friend was so shocked. She was so shocked. She was so scared. And she was like, that's why she kept on seeing like people with no hands and all of that. So she's like, she goes on Instagram to check this guy, and his Instagram has disappeared. She searches this guy's name, nada. She searches this guy's name, or she actually puts in the surname, and then the sister comes up. When the sister comes up, it's an RIP post of this guy. So like this guy that she was with basically died, I don't know how many months or years ago, and the sister had posted the guy like, happy birthday, happy heavenly birthday, brother. I'm like, girl, it just keeps on getting worse. So one of her guy friends is like a seer, like a prophet type vibe, and she asked him about this guy, and the guy told her like, you were busy with somebody that is a spirit. This person is working for somebody else, right? So what this person this person is working for a ritualist, right? And this ritualist is using that person's spirit to lure young girls to sleep with them so that he can keep on making money. You understand? So how he generates money is that he sleeps with girls like you, and had you slept with him, you are going to die within a week. And he's like, that room that you saw inside that house with girls plugged on the walls and they were missing and all of that, that's not missing girls, that's girls who slept with him and died within a short period of time. And after that girl dies, you must know that you are going to resurrect and you're going to work for this guy. He's going to use your soul, your spirit, and alai to make him money. So all those girls that you found in the party, basically he's going to recruit alive people and he's going to bring them to a party filled with dead people, and you're going to feel comfortable because there are other girls there. Until those girls are dead, they're going to recruit you as well. You're lucky you guys ran away. Girl. And I don't know how she wanted me to comfort her, because I told you I had a bad feeling about this,
Weird spooky story time, and a small man woke her father up in the middle of the night telling him he had a treasure for him. Father grew up in the mountain hills of Jalisco, Mexico. During his childhood, they lived in a small adobe house. Life was hard. Everyone worked, even the children, just to bring home food or a little money. One night, after working in the fields with my grandfather, my father came home exhausted and went straight to sleep. Sometime in the night, he was awakened, not by a noise, not by an animal, by someone standing near him. He says it was a small person, not a child, not someone he recognized, just small. The little figure asked him to put on his shoes and follow him. He said he had something to give him, a treasure, but they would have to walk to where it was hidden. My father says he got up, but he put on his shoes and he followed, out of the house, into the trees, past a field, across a small creek, until they reached a single tree standing alone. The little person pointed to the base of it. "The treasure is there," he said. "It's for you." My father looked at the ground and asked, "Where?" The small figure replied, "In the earth. I have a treasure I would like you to have." Oh my gosh, this is so creepy. And then he woke up, back on his bed mat. Morning light in the room. Confused, he sat up, and that's when he noticed his shoes. They had mud on them, fresh mud. He told one of his brothers what had happened. They decided they would go find that tree, go dig up the treasure. They walked to the spot, and there it was, the same field, the same creek, and the same tree, standing exactly as it had in the night. He started digging. The dirt was hard, dry. They were only around 9 years old, small, not very strong, but they kept digging, a meter down, maybe a meter and a half. For them, the hole felt enormous, deep enough to swallow them. After hours of work, they were exhausted, disappointed. They gave up. They went home. About a year passed, and suddenly a rancher nearby became very wealthy overnight. No one knew how. He had been just as poor as everyone else in the hills, working just as hard. But now he had money. People began whispering, telling their own version of what must have happened. And one of the stories said he had found a treasure. When my father heard that, he remembered the tree, the hole, the treasure he never finished digging. He went back as soon as he could, and when he arrived, the hole was there, and it had been dug deeper. Maybe half a meter more. Not old, not collapsed, fresh. If they had just dug a little farther, that treasure would have been theirs. But sometimes I think, if they had found it, my father's life would have been in a completely different direction. And maybe I wouldn't be here. Some treasures are meant for everyone, and sometimes the hills choose who receives them. That was a really cool story, and I liked the angle she went with it, where she was like, even though my dad didn't find the treasure, maybe that's how it was supposed to be, because maybe I wouldn't be here. Maybe his life wouldn't have gone in the direction that it did. So I like when people have like a positive outlook for something that you wouldn't typically see as negative. And hey, maybe that neighboring farmer really, really needed that money for something. Like maybe it was good for him too. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, or if you have a similar story, send it my way.
Do you ever get the feeling late at night that you're being watched, or like something's wrong and you just can't explain it? Now, there was this woman named Catherine. Catherine lived outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the area that she lived was pretty remote. There wasn't a lot of houses around. Now, she said one night she was working in her living room. And as she's sitting at her desk, she started to get this feeling like she was being watched. And as she continued to do more work, it just kept getting worse and worse. And finally, it gets to the point where it was almost unbearable. And so she gets up and she just starts pacing back and forth. And she didn't know why she felt like she was being watched. And she said, she just could not find any peace. She said after about 15, 20 minutes of pacing back and forth, just trying to calm herself down, she looked over into her kitchen window. And she said standing there was this tall, hairy creature staring at her with its hands cupped around its eyes. She said as it seen her, it turned and took off running into the woods. She said after that, she did not like to stay alone at the house ever. Ed and Lorraine Warren had an encounter with Bigfoot. In one of their lesser known books, they recount being in Tennessee for a speaking engagement when they are contacted by this family in eastern Tennessee who claims that they are being harassed on a nightly basis by this very large creature. And they believed that it was trying to take their young son. So Ed and Lorraine Warren rushed over to this family's house and they began speaking with them. And they tell them about their son playing outside, this very large, hairy creature trying to grab their son and take it back into the woods. And after they get done talking to this family, the townspeople agree to take them out into the woods and show them where this creature lives. So they set off on this hike through the Appalachian Mountains. And after about 3 hours, Ed and Lorraine Warren are starting to think, okay, we got fooled. Like, what are we doing? We're out in the middle of the woods searching for Bigfoot. So Lorraine lays up against a tree to rest. All of a sudden, she said she telepathically felt a presence. And she said she could tell there was a creature about 40 yards away, and it was calling for help. It was wounded. And she could see in this vision that it had hurt its foot, and it was bleeding pretty bad. And it was calling to Lorraine to help it. So Lorraine starts communicating with this thing, saying, you know, why have you been harassing this family? Like, they are terrified. And he said, I wasn't harassing them. You know, I was trying to make a friend with the child, because children do not try and hunt us. They are, like, friendly. And he says, but, you know, I need help. Can you help me? And so she starts telepathically communicating and trying to, like, basically just give him a little bit of peace. And right at that moment, one of the men that was in the group of hikers blows this horn, and it makes this loud sound. And the next thing she knows, this presence is running through the woods, taking off, and it's terrified. And then after that, she said she lost sort of that connection with it. About 40 yards away from where they were, they find a blood trail leading off into the woods. And after that, she said, you know, that was like their only Bigfoot case. But Ed believed that Bigfoot was essentially some sort of mind spirit, or something that existed in sort of a supernatural realm.
Might have known the story of real life boogeyman.
Have you noticed how we've not built any new cemeteries? Like, any city, town you go to, they still have the same cemeteries they've had for hundreds of years. And people pass away all the time, yet these cemeteries never seem to fill up. There are always open plots of land where you can bury someone. So where are the bodies? Where are they going? What's happening to them? I've got this interesting theory that I've heard. Now, in the 1970s, there was this movie called Soylent Green. Now, Soylent Green was this movie starring Charlton Heston, and it was about this futuristic city in which the world had become overpopulated. They had destroyed the oceans, they had destroyed the earth, and times were really rough. And none of the people in the city could afford to buy any groceries. They couldn't afford just the normal things we get every day at the store. So, in order to keep them from starving, they were sold this very cheap stuff that was made in the factory. It was like a squared cracker or ration, and it was called Soylent Green, or yellow or red. And the people, because they were hungry, because they were starving, they would protest like every day. They would go out into the streets and have these huge protests. But these trucks would come around, and they would pick them up and take them away. And all these people were like disappearing. So Charlton Heston's character, who is this detective, he starts investigating this mysterious case, which leads him to the factory where they make this Soylent Green. And what he discovers is that the Soylent Green is made from humans. And when you kind of look around now, right, the same things are happening that happened in that movie, right? We are slowly destroying the oceans, the earth. Groceries have become unaffordable. They are now a luxury to most. And you wonder, the foods that we're getting that are so cheap that we're able to afford to buy, the only stuff that we can eat, what is it made of? Now, I'm curious what you think. Why do you think we are not building any new cemeteries? One of the cryptids that's always fascinated me is the Mothman. Now, the true story of the Mothman is very terrifying. In 1966, this small town of Point Pleasant was terrorized by this flying humanoid creature. And although it got the name Mothman, it looked absolutely nothing like a moth. Now, the name Mothman actually came from the newspapers, who associated it with a Batman character from the comic books at the time. But in reality, based on what people seen in Point Pleasant, was this very large man-like creature with bird-like wings. It was covered in hair, it had no neck, and it had these bright red eyes. And not only did people encounter this thing in their yards and their homes, they were affected by it. People got sick. People had burns. There were all kinds of UFO sightings. There were cattle mutilations. There were these strange men who started showing up in town, questioning the witnesses and scaring people. And then the last time Mothman is seen, the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, collapses. Now, one of the creepiest Mothman stories that I heard actually comes outside of West Virginia. Now, there was this man named Christopher. Christopher said that his grandmother lived in Point Pleasant and actually had an encounter with Mothman. And his family hardly ever spoke of it, but he did know that it occurred. He said at this time, they were actually living in Virginia. And they lived on several acres of land. Now, they stayed in this small trailer on one side of the property. On the other side of the property was the grandmother's house. And not too far from that was sort of like a utility shed. Well, one night, Christopher's father tells him, I need you to go by your grandmother's house and get some more firewood, which is next to the shed. So he hikes through this trail over to the side of where his grandmother lives, and he goes out to the shed, and he starts gathering some firewood. As he looks over, he sees his grandmother on the porch. And standing next to her is this tall man who had these very large bat-like wings and bright red eyes. And the grandmother was simply having a conversation with whatever this thing was. And she said this thing, it noticed that he was watching them. And it turned around, it looked at him, and then it walked inside the grandmother's house. So he takes off running back to his father, and he tells him, there's something at grandmother's house. There's something at grandmother's house. And at the time, his father thought, someone had broken into her house or something. So he grabbed Christopher and his brother, and they went right away to the grandmother's house. And when they get there, the grandmother's sitting on the porch, and they run into the house. There's absolutely no one there. They searched the entire property. They asked the grandmother, who was that? She wouldn't say. She wouldn't tell them what that was on her porch. About a week later, Christopher's grandmother passed away. And he said he felt like, to him, that she was speaking with the Mothman. A lot of people don't realize that video games can be vessels for something evil or negative, right? They see it as an opportunity to trick you or lure you in. Think about it. When we're playing a video game, we are focused in on this game. All of our attention goes to it. And so we don't realize what is coming through. And the people that created this game, when they're developing it, we don't know what goes on during that process. We don't know what's written into the code or the Easter eggs in the video game. So, yes, a video game can be haunted. Now, this story I heard when RD2 first came out. There was this guy, he just got the game, and he'd been playing for like a week. Well, there's a part in the game when you're in Lemonade, and you're outside of St. Denis in the swamp, where you encounter this ghost woman. And this guy said he happened to be in the swamp NWA in this general area where the woman appears. He said he was walking around when all of a sudden this woman just jump scares and pops out onto the screen. And he said she was transparent, looked like the ghost lady you see in this area. Well, he said right after he's seen her, he hears a man's voice on the game saying, "She doesn't love you." And he said he was freaked out. So he turns the game off and he's like, you know what, I'm done for the night. And he goes to bed. Well, he said later that night, this game turned on by itself, and he wakes up to hearing a woman screaming. And he realizes the game has not only turned on by itself, but his character, Morgan is right at that location where you encounter the spirit of the woman. Another creepy thing, when they were making the Fatal Frame game, the Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, the director, Makoto Shibata, said that it was a custom in Japan that when you would make a horror game, that you would go to a shrine and perform this purification ritual. He opted out of doing that because he wanted to have supernatural experiences while they were developing this game. So he said when they were recording some of the sound for the game, they picked up a voice. And when they tried to re-record this piece of sound, it just kept returning. So eventually he gave up and was like, we're just going to put it in the video game. He said another thing that happened to him was he was visiting some relatives at this old hot springs hotel in Japan. And he said he went to bed one night and he woke up and there was a man staring out the window. And he said he slowly just disappeared right in front of his eyes. He goes over to the window and realizes he was looking out at the full moon. And he said that partly inspired him to write this game and come up with the name for the game. He said another time he was in the studio, it was late and there was no beds. So he went into one of the rooms and found this ping pong table and laid down, took a nap. He said he woke up to this little girl walking in circles around the table, singing numbers in like this verse. And it was like 6, 5, 3, 8. And like, so he took that experience and put it in the game. And he said many other things happened that were actually used in the developing of this video game. It's a 100% complete true story from this guy named Al. Now, Al was a mechanical engineer. He got a job in Seattle, Washington. And so he moved his family outside of Tacoma. And he said they moved into this residential area that was tucked into the woods. And behind his house, he said there was like 1,000 acres of land. And he said his time living there, he had a series of strange things happen. It all started with the first thing was Al had forgotten his keys out in his car one night. And he gets ready to go outside. He yells for his dog to come with, except his dog was like scared, which was weird to Al because his dog followed him everywhere. So he's like, okay, whatever. He goes outside. Well, he said as he was walking to his car, he couldn't help but feel like someone was watching him from the woods. And he opens his car door and he starts looking for his phone. Well, he said he noticed that it was just quiet. There were no sounds at all. And he thought, that's kind of eerie. As he's searching for his phone, he starts to hear something moving behind him in the woods. It sounded like footsteps, like something was walking right behind him. So he hurries up to find his phone, and finally he gets it. He closes the door, and he said as he turned around, all of a sudden, this breeze started to kind of move through the yard. And he sees these leaves sort of moving, like almost like footsteps, and they're coming right towards him. This freaked him out. He runs inside. The second weird thing that happened to him is he was outside in his backyard doing some yard work when he said he started to hear this humming sound. And it was like, and it just kept getting louder and louder. And he could not figure out where it was coming from. The third thing that happened to him that was weird is he said him and his wife were sitting outside one night. They had a fire going, and they heard what sounded like thousands of birds squawking. And it was almost like they were flying right over them, but there wasn't a single bird in the sky. And he said that's when things started to get really terrifying. One day he happens to be in his backyard. He has a bunch of lawn clippings, and he decides to take them out into the backwoods to empty them. Well, he had been to this spot several times before, but when he gets there, he discovers someone has placed a 12-foot pole into the ground. And he's like, how in the world did this get out here? Like, there's no electrical wires, there's nothing going to it. Like, what is this pole here for? So he goes back to his house. He said, a couple weeks later after this, he's sitting inside with his wife, and this thunderstorm rolled in. They had the windows open, and they were listening to the rain hit the ground, when all of a sudden his wife jumps up, and she says, do you hear that? And I was like, hear what? What are you talking about? And she's like, you don't hear that. Like, it's a child's voice saying, help me, coming from outside. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't hear anything. And she's like, no, listen, there it is again. She's like, wait, that is our son. He's calling for help. Like, he needs our help. And Al's like, what are you talking about? Like, our son is asleep in bed. She's like, no, he needs our help. I'm going outside. She starts running for the front door. Al has to grab her and like wrestle with her to keep her from going outside. And then eventually he calms her down. A couple more weeks after this, right, his son does the same exact thing, except he says he hears his mother outside calling for help out in the woods. And he said, this just kept happening. And the last straw, he said, for him was him and his wife went out one night. They had a babysitter at the house. As they're returning and going down the street, he said on the side of his house, he sees this 9-foot tall, black-looking creature with solid red eyes that are glowing, standing next to the window, like it's trying to get inside the house. He said as they pulled into the driveway, this thing took off running into the woods. And he hurries up, he runs inside and is like, is everything okay? Is everything all right? And the babysitter's like, thank goodness you got here. Like, your son is trying to run out the door because he said he thinks you're out in the woods and you need help. And so shortly after this, Al and his family move. And he said he got this feeling, whatever this was trying to draw his son and his wife out into the woods. And he said not even a couple months after they had moved, they found 2 bodies in those woods behind the house.
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. Before my neighborhood was ever built, the land that it sits on used to be a family farm. I grew up hearing the same story over and over, that the family's young daughter had died on the property. It was one of those local legends you hear as a kid and don't really question. I never thought much of it. Looking back now, I probably should have. When I was little, I was terrified to sleep in my own room. Not because of nightmares, because it felt like someone was watching me. I could never explain it. I just knew. Most nights, I'd end up sleeping in my parents' room instead. One night, when I was around 9 or 10, I was sleeping on the floor beside my parents' bed. I woke up in the dark and turned my head towards my mom, and that's when I saw her. There was a little girl lying behind my mom, almost like she was spooning her. She was holding an old-fashioned doll, one that looked almost exactly like the doll we kept in our basement, the kind with the glassy eyes and stiff limbs. She wasn't moving. She was staring directly at me. I screamed. My mom woke up instantly, jumped out of bed, turned on the lights, and the girl was gone. There was nothing there. My parents brushed it off as a bad dream, but I know what I saw. After that, I never saw her again. Not like that. And for a while, things were quiet. Then I got older, and the strange things started. Objects that were important to me, jewelry, specific pieces of clothing with meaning behind them, would disappear, gone, for months. I'd tear my room apart looking for them. And then, out of nowhere, they'd reappear, perfectly placed, right where I would have noticed them before. My parents swore they hadn't touched anything. My TV would turn on by itself, flipping to different channels while the remote sat untouched across the room. Lights would turn on and off without explanation, and the strangest part, no one else in my family was experiencing anything. For over 20 years, it was just me. Then I started hearing stories from other people in the neighborhood. Neighbors talking about hearing a little girl giggling outside when no kids were around, footsteps running through yards at night. And that's when I started to wonder if whatever this wasn't attached to the house, but to the land. Recently, things have started happening again, and this time, other people are seeing it too. About 6 months ago, I came home and noticed the bathroom connected to my room was locked, even though no one had been in there. I unlocked it, walked away for a minute, came back, and it was locked again. My boyfriend watched it happen. A few months later, my boyfriend and I tried to leave through the garage. The door handle wouldn't budge. We twisted the lock every possible way, pulled, pushed, nothing. After several minutes, it suddenly opened, like nothing had ever been wrong. A month later, the same thing happened again, but this time it was with my dad. The handle isn't broken. We've never had issues with it before. Now, my mom has started sending me videos. Lights flickering throughout the house, turning on and off for no reason. And then, tonight, something happened that finally scared her. She got into her car and buckled her seatbelt. As she did, she felt something, like someone was behind her. It grabbed the belt and yanked it hard. She spun around. No one was there. For years, I told myself that this was just something around me. Coincidences, imagination, maybe even stress. But now, other people are experiencing it too.
Do you recognize the name Vanessa Guillén? Because if you don't, and if you're anything like me, after listening to this video, you're not going to be able to forget her name. All the different emotions that I experienced while prepping for this video, just a warning, this is not going to be easy to listen to, but I do think it's so important to tell her story. Vanessa Guillén was born in Houston, Texas, into a family that understood sacrifice. Her parents had made the move from a small farm town in Mexico to America in hopes of finding better opportunities. They ended up settling down in Southeast Houston, and it was there that they raised 6 children in a tight-knit home filled with so much love. They were a very close family, and something about Vanessa is that she knew what she wanted to do with her life from the moment that she was only 12 years old. She had always been drawn to the military. Her mother, Gloria, remembers when Vanessa was so little playing around with her brother's toys, just dreaming of the day that she would get to wear a uniform. And the fact that the Guillén family had a history of military service, not only in Mexico, but also in the States, I do think that played a big part in it because Vanessa grew up being familiar with it. Of course, as a mom, Gloria had her reservations. Call it a mother's intuition, but she had a gut feeling that Vanessa would eventually want to enlist, and for some reason, she just did not feel good about it. Yet, the one thing that she was going to do always was support her children, support her daughter, and that she did. When Vanessa attended high school in Houston, kind of her entire life, honestly, she was a very active person, whether it was being at the gym, playing soccer, running cross country. She loved exercise, and she was such a good role model for her sisters. She would always tell them to grow up and be strong like her. She was always doing something, and when she graduated high school in 2018, just a few days after turning 18 years old, she did what she had always dreamed of doing. She enlisted in the United States Army. When she completed her basic training, she was stationed in Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas, which was amazing because it was within driving distance to her family's house. From where she was stationed to her family's house, it would have been around a 3-hour drive, which was so nice because, again, she was such a family person. Every weekend, Vanessa would drive home to spend time with her family, and every single weekend, they were always just as excited to see her. Her mother said that the first time that Vanessa came home from base, she was absolutely glowing, so happy that she was finally following through on her dreams. The joy was literally radiating off of her. You could see it from miles away. It was so present. So Vanessa's role within the Army was small arms and artillery repairer. I think that's how you say it. In other words, she was in a unit with hundreds of other soldiers. Fort Hood is one of the largest military bases in the world, and her job was to take apart, troubleshoot, repair, and reassemble weapons. It's very much a technical job that requires a lot of precision and a lot of skill. Think of it sort of being like a mechanic, but instead of cars, it's weapons. It required a very precise set of skills, but Vanessa had them and she excelled at them. She quickly rose to the rank of private first class, and according to her family, she was over the moon about everything. So there are rankings within the military, right? And I had to look these up for this video. I don't know anything about the military. I didn't prior to this video, so if I get anything wrong, I'm so sorry, please correct me. So the higher ranking that you have, the more power you have, for a lack of a better word, the more respect that you have. And the progression for junior enlisted soldiers goes like this. This isn't officers, by the way, it's ranking for enlisted soldiers. Officers are different, I'm pretty sure. But from lowest to highest, Private E1 would be like a new recruit. Private E2 would be after basic training. Private First Class E3, often called PFC, means that you have experience or prior military training. Specialist E4, also called SPC, is next, and they can manage soldiers that are lower ranks than them. Then it's Sergeant E5, and that's a first leadership position. Sorry if that was confusing, but just to give you an idea of where Vanessa was at. But she was happy with her new life, happy with her new job, everything that she was doing, everything she was learning. It was all very exciting until it wasn't. And her family members were the first people to notice that something was wrong. They were all used to such a happy, outgoing Vanessa, someone so confident, strong, and sure of herself. But the Vanessa that they were seeing was different. She began to look ill almost. She was getting thinner. She didn't want to eat. She had less energy. Her mom said that she could just tell that her face looked sad. They would ask her if she was doing okay, and Vanessa would just say, "Yeah, Mom, I'm okay, I promise." One day, she left the base, she drove all the way home, walked into a bedroom where her sister was, and she closed the door and just broke down. She just started crying. She looked absolutely broken, and she told her sister that she didn't like it in Fort Hood and that she hoped one day she would understand why. In March of 2020, Vanessa got engaged, and she was so happy. Her and her fiance had met at a party. They had spent the entire night together dancing, and he knew from the moment that he laid eyes on her that she was the one. His family loved her, her family loved him. Everyone was so happy for them, and after the engagement, which happened in mid-March, there was like a sort of calmness that returned back into Vanessa. Like a sense of safety almost, because she was going to get to spend the rest of her life with the love of her life. By April of 2020, the following month, she was 20 years old and working as a private first class, close to earning the rank of a specialist. She had her entire life ahead of her. But then on April 22nd of 2020, she disappeared. Vanessa always responded to her family's phone calls and texts. text. Maybe not right on the spot if she was busy doing something, but she would always make sure to get back to them when she could. But that Wednesday, she wasn't responding to anyone. During the day, her sister called, her mom called. She didn't answer, which is okay because she was at Fort Hood working. But when she didn't answer the calls, text messages follows. Her family assuming that if she didn't have time to talk on the phone, she at the very least would text her sister to let her know that she was busy and she would get back to her when she could. But she also wasn't responding to anyone's text messages. Around 8 p.m. that night, one of her sisters calls the base to see if they've seen Vanessa, and they say that they haven't seen her since around lunchtime. They tell her that she had an assignment for the day, and the last they knew, she went off to complete that task, but she never came back. And her sister is on the phone thinking, it's fully past 8 p.m. now, and not a single person from the base has bothered to look for her. Vanessa's sister, her fiance, her mom, and her dad sit down together back at their house, all at the dinner table. They all talk to each other about the last call or text that they received from Vanessa, and none of them had heard from her. That's when her sister says, I just called the base and they're saying that they don't know where she is. But how does someone disappear in a military base? It was weird, it was odd, and the feeling in their gut was not a good one. As soon as they realized that no one had heard from her, it was like all of her immediate family members and her fiance locked into the state of mind of, she is not going to be a missing person. She went to go work at the base. She never left. She has to be at the base. I don't care what you do. Shut down the base if you have to. We are going to find Vanessa. There was no reality for them in which they were going to accept that Vanessa was gone. So the looking for her to find her began. That same night, Vanessa's sister and her fiance got in the car and made the drive to Fort Hood. They got there at 3 a.m, but they were just told to leave and come back tomorrow. The entire night, her sister continued to text Vanessa's phone saying, Vanessa, hello. And then she sent her a text message that read, I'm going to find you, I promise. The following day, on April 23rd, the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Division, also referred to as the CID, was notified that Vanessa was missing. Her keys, her wallet, her ID were all found in the arms room where she had been working the day before. Her car was also still on base, but her phone, nowhere to be found. It was also confusing because statements of when and where Vanessa was seen the last time on base were not consistent with each other. On April 24th, Fort Hood Military Police issued a BOLO, a be on the lookout order, to law enforcement agencies in Bell County. April 27th, CID offered a reward up to $15,000 for information leading to Vanessa's whereabouts. And the entire time, in the days following her disappearance, her family was not backing down. Her little sister, the videos of her talking about Vanessa are so sad, but she was just not willing. She was so confused, not understanding how Vanessa could go to work and then disappear on a military base. Her mom was desperate, demanding that they still search every single corner, every single building, every single crevice of that army base until they found her daughter. Her other sister and her fiance were taking matters into their own hands because it was clear from day one that they were going to need to. They were printing out posters with Vanessa's name, her face, leaving them at gas stations, metro stations, surrounding stores and shops, leaving posters with Vanessa's face on them. They wanted every single person possible to look at Vanessa's face and to be on the lookout. They were standing outside with pictures of her face, saying her name week after week after week. Her entire family continuing to pray together over and over, day by day, not giving up. Starting Facebook pages, posting on social media, hashtag Vanessa Guillén. They were doing everything. And it felt like the Fort Hood Military Police and the CID were not communicating properly with each other as they should have been. But what it felt like was that there seemed to be no real concerns that something happened to Vanessa outside of the base, because all signs were pointing to the fact that she never left. So the only other option would be that she disappeared at the base and that something happened to her, or that someone did something to her on base. And her mom was the person that had that feeling from day one. She felt so strongly about the fact that someone on the inside had either done something or at the very least knew something, and she felt that way because of a conversation that she had had with Vanessa. When she hadn't been acting like herself, her mother sat her down at the kitchen table, just the two of them, and her mom asked her to tell her what was going on. After a little bit, Vanessa agreed to tell her mom, but she warns her and tells her that what she's about to tell her is not going to be easy to listen to. Vanessa Guillén was being at Fort Hood, and she was afraid to report it. There was a sergeant, a specialist, and or multiple men that were not only creating an uncomfortable environment for Vanessa at Fort Hood, but an unsafe one, stalking her, watching her during private moments like when she was taking a shower in the field after doing exercises. She was so afraid and so uncomfortable, but she was even more scared to report it. When she told her mom about everything that was going on, she told her that she couldn't report it because she said that she had seen other girls and other women going through similar situations, and in their case, they reported it and they were ignored. No one believed them. Specialist Aaron David Robinson was 20 years old. He was from Illinois, specifically the Chicago suburbs, and he joined the Army in October of 2017, training as a 12B combat engineer. By April of 2020, he was working as an armorer, doing the same thing that Vanessa did. However, he was a specialist, and even though he was not Vanessa's direct supervisor, nor was he in her chain of command from my understanding, he was a specialist and he had been at Fort Hood longer, meaning that gave him a higher ranking than Vanessa. Vanessa. And what investigators would later piece together was that on the morning of April 22nd, the day that Vanessa disappeared, she had been completing her assignments, her tasks in the arms room where Aaron Robinson also happened to be. So let's back up for a second and talk about the entire timeline of that day. Around 10 a.m. on the 22nd, Vanessa arrived for her workday, inspecting and processing broken equipment for turn-in. She had a second task that morning, validating a serial number on a machine in a different arms room located in a nearby building. That arms room was occupied by Aaron Robinson. At approximately 10:15 a.m., Vanessa left her arms room and walked over to Aaron's. At 11:13 a.m., Aaron Robinson closes his arms room, and Vanessa would never be seen alive again. The soldier who had given Vanessa the task to validate that serial number was expecting her to go to Aaron's room, validate it, and then return back to hers. It was supposed to take her 5 minutes, but she didn't return back to her room. And when that soldier texted her around 11:05 to ask if she was coming back, she didn't respond, and her things, her personal belongings, were found in her arms room, meaning that she never went back to get them. So all of that points to a very high possibility that Aaron Robinson was the last person to see Vanessa Guillén alive. So when Vanessa's friends at the base figure out that no one had seen her, they started asking around to see who was the last person to see her, who was she working with last. They find out it was Aaron Robinson. Aaron Robinson is asked about her, and to her friends, which were two other men that she was close to, he says, "Oh yeah, I saw her in my arms room, but I didn't really talk to her. I just did what I had to do and then I left. No clue where she went or what she did after that." And then he's asked about it by the CID, and to them he says, "Oh yeah, I did see her in my arms room. I talked to her for a little bit, then I left, and I drove back to my house off base to spend the night with my girlfriend." So this guy has a girlfriend, 22-year-old Cecily Aguilar. They asked the girlfriend to confirm his alibi, and she says, yeah, he came home from work and we spent the night together. After Vanessa's mom notified authorities about the allegations, an investigation was allegedly opened into Aaron Robinson to see if he was the person that Vanessa had been referring to when she told her mom. The result to that was, quote, "The investigating officer found no credible evidence to conclude Aaron Robinson and Vanessa Guillén, or that they had any relationship outside of their work setting," end quote. So whoever Vanessa was referring to when she opened up to her mom is still unclear. Regardless, Aaron at the end of the day was still the last person known to have been with her. So investigators began talking to witnesses, asking if anyone may have seen Vanessa walk out of the arms room or if they had seen Aaron doing anything out of character the day that she disappeared. And then they hear from two witnesses that that same day, the 22nd, the day that she disappeared, they saw Aaron Robinson hauling a large storage case on wheels. It's called a tough box. It kind of looks a little bit like a dumpster, but small and on wheels. And they remember seeing him pull this around because it appeared to be very heavy. At some point when his shift ended, Aaron Robinson loaded up that tough box into his car, drove away from Fort Hood. A tough box, by the way, was big enough to fit a body. He went home, got home, and according to him, just spent time with his girlfriend. Vanessa's family was losing faith in the Army's investigation, and on June 10th, at a press conference, they dropped the bombshell, and everyone watching learned about the fact that Vanessa had been. Her family was extremely frustrated by the lack of progress, and it was their belief that they were just simply not receiving the full story from investigators in regards to Vanessa and everything that they knew. Vanessa's story was all over the media now, and I assume that investigators felt even more pressure to solve this case, as they should have. 58 days into her disappearance, skeletal remains were found, but they were not Vanessa's. They were the remains of Gregory Morales, a soldier that had gone missing back in 2019, but his family had been told that Gregory had left base on his own accord, and they never received any more information about him really from them on. They had no closure. They never figured out what happened to him. No justice, nothing. And that, as you can imagine, only made the investigation progress from the Army in regards to looking into missing people look even worse. It gave off that they were not experienced, they were not organized, and they had an extreme lack of concern and attention when things like these happened. A missing person should be the highest of priorities to anyone, but it felt like that was not the case. Not in Gregory's case, not in Vanessa's case. It wasn't until investigators re-interviewed Cecily, Aaron's girlfriend, that they would get answers into what really happened, because she broke and she finally said what she had known all along. Cecily told police that Aaron Robinson had confessed to her that he was the person responsible for Vanessa's disappearance. It turns out that the day that she disappeared, when she was in his arms room, Vanessa had seen Aaron's lock screen on his phone. His lock screen was a picture of Cecily. Cecily was legally married to another soldier on that base. She was the estranged wife to another soldier. They had separated, they were living apart, but still, she was still married to him, and Aaron knew him. In fact, Aaron used to be their roommate. All three of them used to live together, and when Cecily moved out, Aaron moved out with her. And when Vanessa saw the picture of Cecily on his phone, according to Cecily, Aaron was worried. He was having an affair with a married woman, a violation of the Army's rules under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. If Vanessa recognized Cecily on Aaron's phone, she could report him. If that happened, he could face serious consequences. So Aaron Robinson decided that he was not going to let that happen. He grabbed a hammer and he used that with as much force as he could until Vanessa was gone. 20 years old, at her place of work, the Army base, surrounded by everything that she had dedicated her entire life to for the United States Army. Aaron put her body in the tough box, loaded it into his car, drove to Cecily, told her what he had just done, and then the two of them talked about how to dispose of a body. They drove to an area near a river about 20 miles away from Fort Hood, where they separated her into pieces, making her easier to dispose of. They set a fire and buried what was left of her in 3 separate shallow graves, and then they covered their remains with concrete, hoping that Vanessa's body would not be found for several years. 2 months and 8 days. For 2 months and 8 days, their plan worked. For 2 months and 8 days, Vanessa's family had no idea where their daughter was, if she was okay, if she was not, or why the Army seemed so unwilling to help them out. After she confessed, investigators made her call Aaron right in front of them, and she did. And she said, quote, "Baby, they found the pieces," end quote. In the early hours of July 1st, 2000, law enforcement located Aaron Robinson. As officers moved in to arrest him, he pulled out of and he unalived himself. And just like that, he didn't face any consequences for anything that he did. Cecily Aguilar was arrested and charged. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison. In 2021, Vanessa's name became a law. The I Am Vanessa Guillén Act changed the rules that had failed her. No longer would a soldier who had been have to report it to their own commander, someone who might be friends with the perpetrator, someone who cared more about the unit's reputation more than the victim's safety. Now, for the first time, service members could take their reports outside of their chain of command to independent investigators. It was the protection that Vanessa never got, but future soldiers would have it because of her. Yeah, I really have no words. The braveness and strength of that family is unlike anything I've seen before. I could cry for her sisters. It's so terrible. That is all I have for today. If you made it to the end, thank you. And thank you for listening to Vanessa's story. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.